Sachavachai Namo Namaha. Vrindai Hai Tosidevai Priyai Hai Keshavashacha Vishnu Mati Prade Deve Sachavachai Namo Namaha. Jai Tulsi Maharani, Tulsi Maharani ki Jai. We offer our most respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are just like desire trees, who can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen, conditioned souls. Jai, Panchakam. Okay. Did you make this yourself? Oh. Okay, big crowd today. Oh my God. There's hardly room for anybody. I don't know what we're going to do when we get the big temple. We're just going to, we'll be lost. We'll be lost in the corner. Yeah. At least people are in line. That's Jaya Radha Madhova Kunna Bihari Jaya Radha Madhova Kunna Bihari Gopi Janabalaba Iri Banantare Gopi Janabalaba Iri Banantare Yasuna Nandana Rajajana Ranjana Yasuna Nandana Rajajana Ranjana Jamuna Chera Manachare Yamuna Jera Manachare Jaya Radha Madhova Kunjabir Haji Jaya Radha Madhova Kunjabir Virati. Nopi Janabalaba Idibadadhavri Gopi Janabalaba Idibadadhavri Yasodhanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Manachari Yamanachari Ramanachari Jaya Raunamadhuva Kunyabihavore Jaya Radhu Madhuva Kunyabihavore Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvadikacharya, also said of Satashi Shimad is divine grace. Abhaya Chandanana Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shinavidas Thakur Vijaya Param Seko Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Vijaya Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopika Shai Makunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuram Ki Jai Jagadada Swami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shimani Lasidevi Ki Jai Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is to the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namadi Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pacharni Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarni. So today we are reading from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 73rd chapter, text 30. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All right. Jagado Prakritabhyas Te Amaha Purusha Chestatam Yathanvashasad Bhagavangs Tata Chakrur atanritaha jagadu prakriti vyaste Mahapurusha cheshtitam yatanvashasad bhagavams tathachakruratanritaha jagadu prakriti vyaste Mahapurusha cheshtitam yatanvashasad bhagavams tathachakruratanritaha jagadu prakriti vyaste Mahapurusha cheshtitam yatanvashasad bhagavams tathachakruratanritaha Ladies. Prakriti vyaste. All right. Jagatu told Prakriti Bhya to their ministers and other associates. Te, they the kings. Mahapurusha, of the Supreme Person. Cheshtitam, the activities. Yata, as. Anvashasat, he instructed. Bhagavan, the Lord. Tata, so. Chakru, they did. Atandritaha, without becoming lax. Lax, of course, for those of you who don't speak English, it means like inattentive and lazy, a combination of inattentiveness and laziness. So, translation, the king told their ministers and other associates what the personality of Godhead had done, and then they diligently carried out the orders he had imparted to them. So you can repeat. The kings told their ministers and other associates what the personality of Godhead had done. And then they diligently carried out the orders he had imparted to them. So again, there's no purport by the followers of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. So we're going to just read Jiva Goswami's short commentary, and then we'll comment. Jiva Goswami states, They loudly glorified his extraordinary activities, like freeing them and ending with sending them home to their ministers with joy, with astonishment and prema, out of devotion to the Lord. With attention and without laziness, out of faith, they did as the Lord, the crest jewel of all qualities, Bhagavan, instructed. So again, the verse. Jagadu prakriti vyaste mahapurusha cheshtitam idhan vashasad bhagavams tata chakru atan dritaha. So, Omagana Timilanda Shah, Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmeditam, Yena Tasmai Shiganave Namaha. So, this verse actually marks the conclusion of the whole interaction between the kings and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And of course, there are 20,800 kings. I don't know how they decided on that number. Usually it's like some 16,000 or something to do with computer stuff, you know. Anyway, but this time it's a difficult number, different number. So this story shows how that particular personalities, the kings in this particular case, who are blinded by lust, power, prestige, and all these things, and intoxication and riches, became transformed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they achieved the highest perfection of the eyes, which is actually to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, highest perfection of the ears, just by the Lord's mercy. It was actually very, very wonderful. And not only that, but they became preachers after that. That's what's being described here in this verse. That not only they'd become completely transformed, and so actually another point I just want to mention is just a side issue. Some people will read these particular verses and think that the kings are established in Shantaras because all their prayers are about the glorification of the greatness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his instructions, but that's just speculation. Sometimes people speculate when they hear that a particular individual's prayers or interactions with the Lord in the past times is only on the platform of one reverence. They think, oh, he must be on Shantaras. But that doesn't indicate anything because basically it could be a particular context or it could be in a particular stage of their development, their spiritual development. So be careful about, I was thinking about this when I was reading these verses, speculating about the particular relationship the kings ultimately have with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So anyway, so this is a common theme that runs through many of the Vedic literatures, which is the transformation of someone. I mean, it's really, we find so many instances of this particular theme. Of course, talk about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, then you have the transformation of Jagai and Madai. And I think even more radical is the transformation of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes of Prakasananda Saraswati. Because Jagai and Madai, they were just like nice materialists. But someone who is a Mayavadi, especially followers of Sripad Shankaracharya, not Sripad Shankaracharya himself, because Sripad Shankaracharya is Lord Shiva, Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu. But for someone who is a Mayavad, because the Mayavad philosophy is so polluting that even a Mahabhagavat Prabhupada says, who takes to the understanding of the Mayavad philosophy will fall down. So don't read the Sarirākya Bhasha. Only if it happens to be your service, like I remember Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu read it, so he could understand how to deal with Mayavad philosophy. But Prabhupada actually says this, repeating the words of the Acharyas, don't take to that understanding. So that's quite a transformation. And it's very inspiring how people get transformed like that. And of course, in our own case, that I'm not saying your own case, my own case, because I don't want to criticize the background of any Vaishnava, because that's considered an offense if you consider the background of a Vaishnava, isn't it? If you say, before you came to Krishna consciousness, you were smoking ganja. I remember you when you were doing that. You know, how could you be so puffed up as to sit on the seat and give Bhagavatam class? Because I remember what you were doing before. So anyway, so just criticize myself. So it's a transformation. The problem, it's a really radical transformation that Prabhupada made in my life, from hippies to happies. I'm happy now, and I was a hippie before with long hair. So, and other transformations that we find in the Vedic literature that are really extreme, like the king's transformations here. We have Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Of course, he was always a devotee, but he was transformed from someone who was completely sentimental about his family members. And then Krishna just transformed him into someone enthusiastic to fight. Then you have Magrari the hunter, who was transformed simply by getting a little scare that Narada Muni arranged, a little virtual reality experience. And Jamil, who also had it wasn't virtual, it was real reality, with the Yamadutas. Anyway, there's so many, another one that comes to mind is King Rahugana, who was really puffed up with his position and criticizing his palanquin carriers. And then when Jadabhart started to speak transcendental philosophy, he just transformed, gave up his false prestige and bowed down and begged for forgiveness. So the kings were so transformed that they did not start or did not continue their old ways of acting, but instead were absorbed in meditation on Krishna and preaching Krishna consciousness, meditation on Krishna's pastimes, serving his devotees, practical devotional service and practical dealings. And so let's talk about what they did. It's mentioned here in the verse. It's mentioned that they preached to their ministers and citizens about the wonderful deeds of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And particularly what they mentioned to their ministers is that the Lord is irresistible time, which is actually a very important point. As Krishna says in the Gita, Kalo Asmi, Mrityu Sarvaha Raschaham. And those of us who are a little bit older, I only see 1, 2, 3 old people in the room. 4. Krishna's still a young guy. Then we actually experience this time factor, and it makes us very serious to not waste any time in serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is a very important point to make, and the kings made that particular point to their followers and ministers, etc., like that. Now let's go over some of the Sanskrit words in the verse. There is this verse word, Yatan Rosha Sad. And this verse is so important because it indicates that the kings, the kings carried out Krishna's instructions as mentioned in the translation, diligently without becoming lax. So what were Krishna's instructions to the kings? Let's go over them one by one. One is to have firm devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the Supreme Self. And that's mentioned in the 73rd verse of this particular chapter, and I'll read the 73rd verse. The Supreme Personality of God, and these instructions are also applicable for us too, not just for the kings. Whenever you read something in the Vedic literatures, particularly the Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's 99% of the time, there's a way to apply it. It's not just some fantastic, wonderful story. What does it mean for you? How do you apply in your life? So this is an instruction the Supreme Personality of Godhead has given to us too. So in the 18th chapter, it says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, from now on, my dear kings, you will have firm devotion to me, the Supreme Self and the Lord of all that be. I assure you, this will come to pass, just as you desire. So Krishna's instructing them, just be devoted to me, completely absorbed in me, devoted to me. Of course, what we're going to mention later on is this verse in 1.1.11 in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Anyabi Lashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Navritam Anukulyena Krishnanu Shilada Bhakti Rudama. This is very similar to this. Then the next instruction that Krishna gives to the kings is one of becoming detached but carrying out your duties. And this is in the 23rd verse of this particular chapter. Be detached from the body and everything connected to it. Everything connected to it means your position, your relationships, your what's termed in the Bhagavatam as fallible soldiers. Nunam pramata, isn't it? No, that's not the verse. Yadindriya, no, what is the verse? I forget the Sanskrit right now that there's about fallible soldiers. Pashanapi napashati, yeah, that's the last part. Okay, Nidanam Pashanapi napashati. That we have these fallible soldiers. Fallible soldiers means the body and things connected to the body and things that we own, things that we think belong to us. So Krishna says, be detached from the body and everything connected to it, remaining self-satisfied. Steadfastly keep your vows while concentrating your minds fully on me. In this way, you will certainly attain me, the Supreme Absolute. Well, what does it mean to be self-satisfied? That's really interesting. Of course, that can be termed to be satisfied in the super self, that is relationship to Krishna. But also, it means just being satisfied with whatever Krishna gives you. And, just satisfaction, tushti. Machita, madgata, prana, paryantas cha parasparam, katyantas jamam nicha. Dushanti cha, ramanti cha. And the only way you can do that is what? Machita, madgata, prana. Bodhyantas cha parasparam, by always talking about Krishna's pastimes with each other, which the kings are actually doing in this particular case. That's the only way you're going to be tushanti cha ramanti cha, to be happy and satisfied and peaceful. And so the next instruction the kings are given by Krishna is to protect their citizens in accordance with religious principles, rather than for personal gain. And that's in the, let's see, what verse is that? That's the 21st verse in the chapter. I understanding this material body and everything connected with it have a beginning and an end. That's again the time factor. Worship me by Vedic sacrifices and with clear intelligence, protect your subjects in accordance with the principles of religion. Very, very important instruction. And the final instruction that they get from the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one of constant remembrance, to keep their minds always fixed on Him and tolerate all the dualities of life. In so many dualities, happiness, distress, summer, winter, financial difficulties, riches, whatever. I mean, so many dualities we have to, or people like us, people hate our guts. Sometimes you go on the internet, especially someone in a position in ISKCON, you go on the internet, and there's so much criticism of you. And sometimes you go on the internet and there's so much praise of you. Of course, because it's Kali Yuga, even if a particular post, the comments on a particular post start with praising, they end up with negativity. So one has to be aloof from these things. Anyway, so this is the quote, 22nd verse. As you live your lives begetting generations of progeny, well, they become Prajapatis, and encountering happiness and distress, birth and death, always keep your mind on me. So ultimately, as I mentioned before, the instruction is the same as given by Srila Rupa Goswami in 111 of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And keeping in with my standard giving class, I'm going to read a purport, translation and purport of Srila Prabhupada's of that particular verse. Because as we're reading different parts of the Bhagavatam, I've made a promise to myself that I'm going to read at least one verse of Prabhupada's and commentary within my giving the class, because I've been feeling intense separation from reading Prabhupada's books as we're reading other people's translations and commentaries, which are wonderful. So rather than being controversial and going back to the first canto, which is actually what I wanted to do, but you can't always have your way in this world, because there are other personalities who want something different. So instead, I'm going to insert one of Prabhupada's verses, either from the Chaitanya Charitamrita or Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm just letting you know what I'm doing in each class that'll support the theme of the class. That's all. So basically, let me go back to the verse here for a second. Basically, reading Vishwanath Jiva Goswami's commentary. In the last paragraph here, he says, with attention, without laziness, and out of faith, they did as the Lord, the crest jewel of all qualities, Bhagavan instructed. So that really is another way of stating 111 in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And so I'm going to read, with great ecstasy, from the Madhya-lila, 19th chapter, text 167, in which Srila Prabhupada actually translates this verse. Of course, that's the verse in the Madhya-lila, and comments on it. So, of course, the verse is Anyabi Lashita Shunyam Yana Karma Navritam Anukuyena Krishna Dushilanam Bhakti Uttamam. And I'm going to read word by word translations, synonyms. You don't have to repeat. Anya Abhilashita Shunyam, that means without desires other than those for the service of Lord Krishna, or without material desires such as those for meat eating, as a Prabhupada added this one, illicit sex, gambling, and addiction to intoxicants. He added that one for our benefit, or not your benefit, because you're a great soul, but for the benefit of us Westerners. Although Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was preaching to higher class people, so generally that wasn't an issue with the people he was preaching to, except for Jagat Madai. Jnana, by the knowledge of the philosophy of the monist Mayavadis, karma by fruit of activities, adi by artificially practicing detachment, by the mechanical practice of yoga, by studying the Sankhya philosophy, and so on. Anavatam, not covered. Anukulyena, favorable. Here's the points. Favorable, Krishna Anushilanam, cultivation of service in relationship to Krishna, Bhakti Uttama, first-class devotional service. So the translation is, when first-class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of all material desires, knowledge obtained by monastic philosophy, and fruit of action. The devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably as Krishna desires. And I've often spoken about this particular verse. In other words, it means not be attached to gross sense gratification, subtle gratification, desire for liberation, impersonal philosophy, and to serve Krishna enthusiastically, which is actually mentioned in the verse we read today in the Bhagavatam, enthusiastically, with a sense of devotion, doing what Krishna wants, and not being lax, of course, that's enthusiasm is actually the opposite of being lax. So this is actually the instruction that was given by Krishna to the kings, and which the kings are actually conveying to their assistants. So, translation, I'll just read it. When first-class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of material desires, knowledge obtained by monistic philosophy, and fruit of action. The devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably as Krishna desires, they repeated. And then, in the purport, Prabhupada said his purports are his devotional ecstasies. That's why it's very important to read at least one purport of Srila Prabhupada's every day, because you're actually connecting with Prabhupada. So I find this, to me, it's an essential part of my life. This verse is also found in Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11, which I mentioned. As we understand from the Bhagavad Gita 9.34 and 1865, the Supreme Personality of Godhead wants everyone to, hold on a second, think of him always. Bhakta. Everyone should become his devotee, not a devotee of a demigod. Everyone should engage in his devotional service, including archana, deity worship in the temple. Manmana bhava bhakto madhyajimam namaskuru. Everyone should offer obeisances from moment to moment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These are the desires of the Supreme Lord, and one who fulfills his desires favorably is actually a pure devotee. Krishna wants everyone to surrender to him, and devotional service means preaching this gospel all over the world. The Lord says openly in the Bhagavad Gita 1869, Nacha tasman manusyeshu kastan me priyakritama. One who preaches this gospel of Bhagavad Gita for the benefit of all is the most dear to Krishna. And actually, this is what you see the kings doing. They're preaching. The Bhagavad Gita is spoken by the Lord so that the human society can be perfectly organized from all angles of vision, politically, socially, economically, philosophically, and religiously. From any point of view, human society can be reformed by the Krishna consciousness movement. Therefore, one who spreads this philosophy of Krishna consciousness for the benefit of all conditioned souls in the universe is perfect in pure devotional service. That's how you become perfect. The criteria is that a devotee must know that Krishna wants him to, what Krishna wants him to do. This understanding can be achieved through the medium of a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Krishna. Srila Rupa Goswami advises Ado Guru Vashrayam. One who is serious in wanting to render pure devotional service to the Lord must take shelter of a spiritual master who comes in the disciplic succession from Krishna. Evam parampara praptam imam rasha shio vidahu. Bhagavad Gita 4.2. Of course, in the case of the kings, Krishna was their guru, at least instructing guru. Without accepting a bona fide spiritual master coming in the disciplic succession, one cannot find out the real purpose of devotional service. Therefore, one has to accept the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and agree to be directed by him. The first business of a pure devotee is to satisfy his spiritual master, whose only business is to spread Krishna consciousness. And if one can satisfy the spiritual master, Krishna is automatically satisfied. Yasha prasada bhagavat prasada. This is the success of devotional service. This is the meaning of the word anukulyena. That is favorable devotional service to the Lord. A pure devotee has no plans other than those for the Lord's service. He is not interested in attaining success in mundane activities. He simply wants success in the progress of devotional service. For a devotee, there cannot be worship of others or demigod worship. A pure devotee does not engage himself in such pseudo-devotional service. He is interested only in satisfying Krishna. If one lives only for the satisfaction of Krishna, it does not matter whether he belongs to this order of life or that order of life or a particular gender. I added that. One's only business should be to satisfy Krishna. This process is completely manifest in the activities of the Krishna conscious movement. It has been actually proved that the entire world can accept devotional service without failure. One simply has to follow the instructions of the representative of Krishna. So, practically, how to do this? One is we have to cultivate full dependence on the Supreme Personality. Got it? You know, we're talking about Sharanagati here. Understand the Lord is always protecting one, always maintaining one, being very dependent on the Lord and the Lord's devotees. We have to cultivate having a higher taste in devotional service. In other words, being attentive while we're chanting the Lord's holy names, not committing offenses. I was just here in a class by Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, if you're chanting japa, non-offensive japa, you're not committing offenses when you're chanting japa, you only get liberation. Interesting, isn't it? That's because it's not positive. It's just, I'm not committing offenses. That's quite an interesting statement Prabhupada made in class. It really struck me. So we cultivate a higher taste by giving our heart to Krishna, chanting with devotion, reading, connecting with, especially with Srila Prabhupada in the Krishna conscious movement, because Prabhupada has the bhakti that we want. Krishna say tamar, Krishna dite par. I mean, sometimes we think we can get bhakti just by going to Radha Kund and running around just chanting, hey Radha, hey Braja Devake, hey Nanda Shuno Kata. No. You're simply eating the mind's bananas, as Prabhupada said in his Vrindavan Bhajan. We cultivate pure bhakti by connecting with someone who has pure bhakti, and Prabhupada has pure bhakti. There's no doubt about it. So that's how we get a higher taste. And then also, again, referring to a verse in this particular purport, a word in this particular verse, atandrata, that means not being lax in our devotional service, being enthusiastic. What is that? Utsahan, nistyad daryat, tatat karma, pavartana. So all these things are explained by the acharyas. And then, ultimately, preaching Krishna consciousness and sharing it with others. And I have a quote here, another quote from Prabhupada. The word jiva himsa, envy of living entities, actually means stopping the preaching of the Krishna consciousness movement. Prabhupada here is defining, himsa, jiva himsa, being cruel to jivas. Preaching work is described as paro upakara, welfare activity for others. Those who are ignorant of the benefits of devotional service must be educated by preaching. If one stops preaching and simply sits down in a solitary place, he is engaging in material activity. Heavy, heavy. This is Prabhupada's mood. This from Madhya Lila 12, 134 is the purport of that particular verse. And then, finally, I'm going to end reading something Prabhupada says in his purport of Prahlad Maharaj's statement in 7753. Very, very interesting. Therefore, the duty, I'm taking just part of it, I have the whole purport. Therefore, the duty of all devotees is to preach Krishna consciousness everywhere, all over the world, because all living entities are without Krishna consciousness, then they are suffering the pangs of material existence. To preach Krishna consciousness is the best welfare activity. Indeed, it is described by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as para upakara, work for the true benefit of others. The activities of para upakara have actually been entrusted to those who have taken birth in India as human beings. You. No, and actually all of us. Because all of us, by taking initiation in the Krishna conscious movement, have that particular duty. And then Prabhupada quotes famous verse, Bharta Bhumate Haila Manasa Janma Jar, Jamnisartaka Karikara Parupakar, CC 941. The entire world is suffering for want of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised all human beings born in India to make their lives perfect by Krishna consciousness and then preach the gospel of Krishna consciousness all over the world so that others may become happy by executing the principles of Krishna consciousness. So any questions or comments? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just reading, and CC what Prabhupada said about entering Vrindavan, physically. So we enter in Vrindavan through the books of like Rupa Goswami,
Yes.
Lita Madhava,
Yeah.
Nectar of Devotion. This is how we enter Vrindavan.
Yes. That's how we enter Vrindavan, through the sound vibration from these great person, the pure devotees. But always remember our connection with Prabhupada. By Prabhupada's mercy, without Prabhupada's mercy, none of us would be here. Well, he would be here.
Prabhupada says that one only gets liberation when we're in the clearing stage.
Yeah, that's right. Clearing stage only gives liberation.
So, most of that, I don't know, if I'm going to get to shoot a nun, it's like, so what's the destination? In other words, does Prabhupada, is there
Well,
some dispensation beyond that?
Well, if we preach Krishna consciousness, we get special dispensation. That's my understanding. If you work for the benefit of others, you sacrifice your life for the benefit of others, then ananyas chintayanto mam ye janak pariyupasate applies in that particular context. Tesham nityabayuktamam yogashem vahamyam. For those who are dedicated to me, and I carry what they lack, and I preserve what they have. Yeah, that very important verse. Because that not only applies like externally, it actually applies, our spiritual lives. If we're just dedicated to, if one's dedicated to the mission of Srila Prabhupada, there's no doubt that you'll achieve perfection. Because Prabhupada, we're dependent on Prabhupada. At least myself. And that's why I mentioned in class that I have to read some of Prabhupada's words every morning during Bhagavatam class. Because it was getting too painful for a while not having Prabhupada read from in Bhagavatam class for me. Just revealing my mind and not in confidence because it's how the whole world hears it. But it's just like I was just having, wasn't having that same feeling for Bhagavatam class. But now that I'm doing that, it gives me, anyway, connection, sambandha, connection to Prabhupada. It's really important because we worship Prabhupada on the Vyasasana every morning. We chant his pranam mantras, but without hearing it from him every morning. Of course, I do that when I'm doing my deity worship. I hear from him every morning, but also in class. I just didn't feel right. It's just me. I'm not criticizing anyone else. It's just my own maya.
It's really good that Prabhupada did translate the 10th canto as a Krishna book. At least
Yeah, we have the whole.
that's
Yeah,
the whole thing there.
David Prabhu.
Yeah, if you read Prabhupada's purport on Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 1, verse 1, and here he talks about how we should read these other books and we should become familiar with all these different acharyas, and he lists a few like Vishwanath Chakravarti, all their commentaries
Yeah.
on Srimad Bhagavatam.
Oh, yeah.
By doing this, following Prabhupada's instructions is connecting with Srila Prabhupada.
I understand that, and I do that too. But I also have to hear directly from Prabhupada every day. I'm not saying something's right, something's wrong. That's my own particular emotional state. I may be in Maya.
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvanta
Namaho Vishnudaya Krishna Prasthaya Uttalai Jimate Bhakti Vinayana Namani Namane Jaya Sri Krishna Jai Kanda Ramanujana Jidveda Granada Sivasadi Gorvatanda Sally, now at the Ati Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare, Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Hare Jai Om Vishnu Pad. Shiva. Goswami Srila Prabhupada. Yes, God. Ram Prabhupada. Ananta Koti Vaishnava. Namacharya Shrivatsa. Friends, say, go Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Prabhu Nityananda Shri Radha. Shiva Sindhu. Radha Krishna. Govardhan, Simon Buddha, Buddha. Giri, Govardhan, Vijay. Vrindavan, Jai, Choram. Go, all glories to the assembled today. All glories to the assembled. Glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Jai.
This Saturday, of course, we've got a lot of special things going on. The expanded morning program, the Plus Plus Sadhana program, and 6-hour kirtan. And because of that, we'll be having our Harinam on Sunday between 11:30 and 1 at Weaver Street Market here in Hillsborough. So please join us for the Harinam on Sunday. Chaito Darpanam Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam Shreya Kairavya Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipanam Pranamrita Swadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Paramvijayade Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda. Thank you. Arva Shaktis Tatrapitani Amita Smarane Nakala Etad Rishita Vakripa Bhagavad Durdaiva Midrishami Hajjani Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najam Sundarim Kavitam Vadagadisha. Thank you. Mama Janmani Ishvare Bhavatad Bhaktir Hoitaki Twai Kainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripayata Vabada Pankaja Stita Duli Sajuchim Vachintaya Nayanam Gadashu Daraya Varanam Gad Garudargya Pulakarnishitam Vapukata Tavanamagrahane Bhavishyati Yugayatam Namishena Chakshusha Pravashayatam Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahiname Ashlisha Vabadamritam and Astumam Adarshanam Marmahata Karotuva Yatatatava Vidadatu Lampato Mat Prananatastusa Eva Napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. Oh, my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction